You're listening to InfoQuench with Jeff.
And Amy, a podcast on how to be more efficient.
And effective in everyday life.
In the criminal justice system, the people are represented by two separate yet equally important groups. The police who investigate crime and the district attorneys who prosecute the offenders. These are their stories.
Dong dong. Hey everybody, you're listening to InfoQuench podcast. I'm your host Jeff.
And I'm Amy.
And this podcast is going to be yet another interesting one about...
It's a flashback.
It's flashback.
To all you folks who are probably currently in your maybe 30s, 40s, 50s, who grew up in the 80s and 90s. We're doing a whole episode on nostalgia.
I'm an 80s guy, basically. Most of my memories are from the 80s. And I don't know if you have this down on your list, but one of the things that I was fascinated with was Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh, I don't. But Dukes, I think, are even earlier than the 80s.
And there's so many things that are wrong. Well, I think it's spilled into the 80s. But there's so many things that are wrong with that show. Like it's crazy how horrible that show actually was. Not just the acting, but just the premise and the concept behind it all.
So now all you Dukes of Hazzard fans, we've just lost you as listeners, I know.
Well, no, I used to have the little die-cast cars and puzzles and coloring books.
1979.
That's when it
Yes,
became,
it ran from 79 to 85.
That was one of those shows that I got to watch if I was a good little boy.
The Duke boys, Bo Duke and Lou Duke. And of course, Daisy.
Lou Duke? You mean Luke?
Luke Duke.
Yeah. And Daisy. Yeah, her legs were insured on that show. How crazy is that?
That is crazy. And for those of you who didn't recognize what I did in the intro, those were the opening lines to a favorite from the 80s, which was, actually, I say from the 80s, it actually didn't start till 1990.
Oh, yeah.
Law and Order.
Law and Order.
It ran for 20 years, from 1990 to 2010.
20 years? Wow. And I honestly never watched that show. I don't think I could say that I've seen a single
I think I've
episode.
seen almost every episode of the early seasons.
Are you going to get me to rewatch them like you did with Seinfeld?
I might.
Or not even rewatch them. Watch them for the first time with Seinfeld. But
It's a funny story, though. I was telling Jeff that when I was little, I remember my dad would watch it at night, and I forget what time it came on. It came on pretty late. I feel like it came on at 11 o'clock or something at night, 10 or 11. And I would hear him try to repeat that intro, and every single night he'd get it wrong.
I love this story.
He was trying to
Is
read
he
it
by
with
himself doing this? That's what I love.
don't know.
Like
I can't remember.
Watching...
I can't remember if it was he and Mom were watching it together, and he would try to...
In the criminal... No.
But the funniest part about this story, and in my father's defense, is as I told Jeff the story, and then I tried to say the intro, and I couldn't come up with it.
I know, I couldn't.
Even though I've probably heard it hundreds of times in my lifetime, I had to Google it, and I was just now reading it from a script. That was not from pure memory.
Yeah, it's...
So, Dad, I understand. As we all have issues with song lyrics, we also have issues with opening narration of Law and Order. And
I never really realized, but that the dun-dun at the end, like, that's not just like a couple of notes from that's I think it's meant to represent the gavel coming down, like bang bang, like court is in session, like dun dun.
I think so too.
Yeah, I never really thought of it that way. I just thought of it as like everybody always does that dun dun thing, but that's what I think it is. I could be wrong.
So this episode really is a trip down memory lane.
Yeah, memory lane. Things you listened to, music you listen to, movies you watched, TV shows, stuff like that. Crazy foods, yeah.
Just here's an interesting fact. In 1981, more than 1 billion people from around the world tuned in for what event?
In 1981?
Yes.
On TV, you mean? Oh, yes. Princess Di and... Yeah.
Good job. Princess Diana and Prince Charles'
I watched
wedding.
that, to be honest.
It was on July 29th, 1981. And just to give you context, Kim Kardashian's wedding to Chris Humphries only got 10.5 million viewers. So Princess Di kicked the Kardashians' butt.
I wish people would give
viewing.
It up with the Kardashians, seriously. They are not interesting. There's nothing interesting about them. I know I'm going to get... more. Like, I have a room full of hate mail now. Things I say on this podcast that people don't agree with. But the Kardashians, I'm done with them.
Well, if they're...
I've never even started and I'm done.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway.
luckily they weren't around in the 80s and 90s when we were growing up. And what made me think to do this episode is I had a great conversation with coworkers last week. We were talking about food and candies and things like that we ate as kids.
Yeah.
And as we were talking about, I think there was somebody who's had a teacher recently who threw out a kid's lunch in the classroom because there was too much sugar or something in it.
Really?
Yeah,
Threw it out?
I know.
That's interesting.
So then we started talking about the crazy amounts of sugar and what we ate.
Goodness.
And
remember the Fun Dips?
I don't know how we lived to survive. Fun Dips came up in the conversation.
Fun Dips were like, that's just pure sugar put on a stick of sugar.
And then you dip it, and the Pixie Sticks were just sugars.
Well, those are the ones with the, like, they're encased in plastic.
And you just dump it into your...
Goodness, yeah, I remember those. And Jawbreakers, of course. I remember those as a kid.
Well, we talked about the whole, like, candy, the Popeye cigarettes.
Oh, yeah. That was really weird.
Yeah. Like, do you think the tobacco companies were just trying to get kids smoking candy?
I don't think it had much
cigarettes?
to do with the tobacco companies, but...
See, I'm more tinfoil hat-minded on this one than you are.
It may have, though. I mean, I think it was just... it could have been a gateway. They're used to...
And they had those pipes. Remember the licorice pipes with the little sprinkles on the end?
Yes, I do remember
and
those.
chewing tobacco, but it was gum. It was in a pouch. It was that pink
those too,
shredded gum that was it was so good and it got so soft. Unlike the Bazooka Joe gum that was like chewing a rock.
And
but you got the little
the
comic
Bazooka
strip
Joe
with it.
comics were horrible. They were what kind of incentive is that to buy like a 5-cent gum and get a crappy comic? Although, comics, they're interesting. They get kids' imagination going and stuff. And when I used to collect hockey cards and baseball cards, they came with a stick of gum. Every single package came with a little tiny stick of gum.
So I think the comic books and the gum makers are in cahoots.
They're in cahoots, right?
Cross marketing. I had Archie comics like There Was No Tomorrow, the Double Digest.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about those. I never really got into the Archie comics.
I may have told you, but I haven't told our listeners.
No. Yeah, no, it's true.
I do have a tendency to repeat stories.
Listeners.
I may have told our listeners.
Yeah.
So other crazy after school snacks or morning foods, Pop-Tarts.
Oh, I remember Pop-Tarts.
I mean, like, forget about the amount of, like, the Count Chocula and all the different breakfast cereals, but fruit roll-ups. Do you remember wrapping fruit roll-ups around our fingers?
I do remember fruit roll-ups. Yeah, that's so funny. And there's used to be these, like, really long, stringy licorice. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
And you could take like one tiny little piece off and you can eat that one, and then what I mean? Like,
and tape gum. It came in like a roll of tape.
Yeah. That's so funny.
Mini sips.
Mini sips. I had so many. Those were only 25 cents, man.
I never trusted that the straw, like, I didn't trust the physics behind putting the straw into the center of, like, as it was intended. You're supposed to impale the mini sip in the middle. I always just froze them. I froze them often, yeah. And I guess whether they were frozen or not, I would just bite the corner of the plastic off.
That's all
and
I
then
did
spit
as well.
Little bit of plastic out.
Do you remember the jumbo Mr. Freezies that would cut your lip?
The sides of your mouth.
The sides of your mouth.
When you ate 6 of them
horrible.
in a row.
What a horrible idea that was. Why did they do that to children? I mean,
And then there's Jello pudding pops.
Which
were, like, obviously Bill Cosby was the spokesperson behind those.
For that.
And then the drinks. So it's Kool-Aid, but do you remember High C?
Yeah, I remember High C.
And Sunny D, I think, is still around, which is like acid. It's like pure. Oh, it's so acidic in your stomach.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
And Pizza Pops.
Pizza Pops.
Recently, one of my coworkers brought Pizza Pops in for lunch. I was like, what is that smell? And it smelled so delicious. And it was a pizza pop just like I used to have after school many, many days.
Yeah, I never really liked Pizza Pops. I don't know what it was about them, but...
I used to squeeze all the stuff out of them onto the plate, and then I would eat the bread part separate and use like a fork to eat the pepperoni cheese innards.
That's funny. You know what else was different way back then was like the kinds of cereal that you could get. Like, the different sort of
like I was saying,
flavors.
The Count Chocula.
Yeah, Count Chocula, and actually a lot of them have...
Smurfberry or something
like that.
Smurfberries
and stuff, and... Yeah, a lot of them have actually persevered and are still around.
Yeah,
but
you got Huck's Lucky Charms.
yeah, like, he did not like those either. Eh? I'm so surprised. I loved those when I was a kid because in my home we only had two kinds of cereals all the time. We never got any specialty cereals. It was cornflakes and Shreddies. That's it. Cornflakes and Shreddies, and you just coated it with sugar to make it edible.
Oh yeah, I remember adding sugar to
Yeah.
my Shreddies.
Yeah. If I eat Shreddies today, I would do it still.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't.
There's no sugar in Shreddies.
I like the flavor of Shreddies now by themselves. I'm a
Yeah.
weirdo, but I remember adding. Yeah, you would add sugar onto your. And I remember using chocolate milk with cereal sometimes.
Oh, I've never done that.
Oh, it's next level.
Is it?
Next level.
As a kid, though, you wouldn't want to do it now.
Then
Maybe, I don't know.
Then we combated all that with fluoride.
Yeah.
And I actually got a little message sent home from Hux's school recently about fluoride treatments, which I didn't realize they still did them in school. I don't know whether they did like a break and then brought it back or what, but
I didn't know that either. I thought they did get rid of it for a while, and now
Yeah.
they're doing it.
They took it out of the drinking water supply here in where we live, but I remember how awful that was. Do you remember the little cups, the little Dixie cups?
Yeah.
And then
I
you had
just
to
got used
spit
to
into it, and then
I just got used to it eventually.
I would wait for the time frame to be over. My mouth's watering just thinking about those little fluoride cups.
You liked it that much? It's watering?
No, in a bad way. bad way.
That's funny.
So going down the nostalgia memory lane, I thought about all the different safety campaigns.
Oh, there's so
It's
many.
National, I think, Fire Prevention Week or Fire Awareness Week this week.
Yeah. They're doing all kinds
There's
of...
a lot of safety campaigns, but so it got me
Yeah.
thinking about the Stop, Drop, and Roll campaign that we knew
yeah.
about as kids.
The stop, drop, and roll.
Stop, drop, and roll. Everybody
remember
do
that.
it. Everybody shout. Stop,
Yeah.
drop, and roll till all the flames are out.
Oh, that's pretty good. How about this one? Do you remember, I am Estar, a robot. I can put my arm back on, but you can't, so play safe.
I do remember that one. That was from the War Amps.
It's War Amps, yeah.
1984. That was
That was one of
came
the
out.
most sci-fi, like that commercial blew people's minds when it came out because it was so... It was like the special effects.
Oh yeah,
for
the blade
then-
comes in
for
from the
then,
side
like,
and cuts his arm
yeah,
off.
yeah. I mean, what an interesting way to campaign that too. Eh? Like,
Yeah.
this is an alien. They can put their arm back on, and that's what they do back in other countries or back in other planets. Now you can't do it because and it's just weird.
But you know what? Those
But
campaigns
it worked. Oh, I know.
Right? I remember that campaign when I wanted to go play on railroad tracks, or Louie the Lightning Bug when I wanted to
Louie.
go play around, power stations.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Got to play it
it's
safe
true.
around electricity.
Come on, do you know the whole tune? Don't you?
I don't. Do you? Are you gonna give it?
No, I wish I did. I would sing it. I totally would because I loved it that much.
Less on the safety side, but more on the raising awareness around sexual abuse, and was Peter Aslop in 1983 had a song, and I remember learning this song in school. My body's nobody's body but mine.
Oh,
You run your own body, let me run mine.
oh,
And it was all around
I don't remember that one at all.
preventing abuse and letting kids know that nobody had permission to touch their bodies.
Oh, that's smart.
Yo, you don't remember that? Maybe
I don't remember that one.
it was very specific to my town, but no.
Maybe.
Actually, I did some research to find out who had written it, and this gentleman has a whole slew of songs that are
Yeah.
all around education that he promotes to teachers and to the school system.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
so-
I'm sure that there's so many of those. If we heard them now, it would jog our memory from when we were younger. You know what I mean?
Whenever I see like too many plugs in an outlet, I think of the old lady in the shoe. Do you remember her?
No.
Oh, there was a whole series of
think so.
PSAs that ran the little lady shoe.
Yes, I do remember
And
those
it showed
now.
like, don't overload an outlet, don't put your cords underneath the carpet.
I do remember those now. Yeah.
Those are the things that, and I'm like,
Yeah.
how are our kids going to know this without these important
That's
PSAs?
so funny. You remember?
Like,
It's
the more
funny.
you know?
No, I was just thinking about music. Do you remember how huge "We Are the World" was when it came out?
Yes.
Like when all the like,
Everybody famous.
everybody
at that
famous, yeah,
We're
like
all singing
Bruce
it.
Springsteen. We are, the world. It's. I remember that being huge because that was like really during the apex of Michael Jackson's career. I think like he was so bloody popular from all the videos and stuff. Like, they were groundbreaking videos, though. Like, Thriller is next level still, really. But, yeah, too bad he ended up not being a really nice human being. But,
I know.
yeah.
Seat belts, talking about safety.
Oh, yes.
I remember... Sorry, Mom and Dad, I'm going to out you on this one.
Oh, here we go.
I remember just sort of sitting in the, jam myself up between the front seats, talking to Mom and Dad, not having a seatbelt on, or sitting in the back of a station wagon and, hanging out with my cousins on a long drive rather than sitting with seatbelts. And actually, I looked it up to find out when the law became law.
I'm going to guess. Can I guess?
Yes. So there's a date where it became law for the first province in Canada, which was not our province.
Was it PEI?
No, actually, it was in Ontario.
Ontario? Okay.
And then, so that was back January 1st, 1976.
I was going to say 78.
Do you want to guess when it came into effect in New Brunswick?
Probably 1982.
Close. So we film our podcast out of St. John, which is in the province of New Brunswick in Canada. And the seatbelt law here came into effect on November 1st, 1983.
Oh, wow.
So you're very close.
Yeah, that is pretty close.
So it wasn't until 83 that a police officer would actually pull you over and give you a ticket.
Yeah.
Until then, we were all riding around the back of pickup trucks.
I think they had to wait for the car manufacturers to add all the seatbelts into their cars before they could actually make it law.
No,
right?
I think that the seatbelts were there.
They think? I don't know. I don't know when the very first time. When was the very first time they put a seatbelt on a car?
That I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to find that
I
out.
don't know.
Maybe our loyal listeners could let us know.
I know they hadn't hit Nicaragua yet. When we were in Nicaragua, most of the cars we were in didn't have seatbelts, or they were jammed in behind a seat somewhere or not functional.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
But it's really odd, though, wasn't it, on how quickly we got used to that? Like, it was just like, well, there is no seatbelt, so just get in.
I know. Like, even if you had a
Sit on my
car
lap.
seat. We had a friend, a couple of, we were traveling with a lot of friends, but we had a friend who had to hold his baby because how can you attach a car seat when you don't even have seatbelts? Yeah,
there
might have been anchors, I don't know, but you
really do just like take a chance
flow.
every time.
Take your life in your hands.
In that metal cage.
But I would see people riding around literally just laying on the tops of vehicles too. There'd be so many people trying to get from one place to another on one vehicle.
4 or 5 different people on one motorcycle. Somehow.
But anyways.
Yeah.
That's Nicaragua. Back to the 80s and 90s. TV shows.
Yeah, TV shows. There were so many TV shows. Do you remember BJ and the Bear?
No.
Do you remember that one?
I don't.
It was about a guy, about a trucker. And I don't really remember it exactly, but his cohort was a monkey. And they just traveled across. There was so many strange shows, like Elf is another one. Do you remember Elf?
Yes, I had Elf
on my list.
Do you remember
Punky Brewster?
Yes.
Silver Spoons.
Night Court came up.
Night Court.
I mentioned it to somebody.
Yeah.
I overheard people talking about it last week, and we had talked about it on one of our episodes around misheard song lyrics.
Oh yeah,
there was an episode that talked about that.
And there was a show that was on every Saturday morning that shaped a lot of kids' lives. That obviously is no longer on, but it was only on like in the West Coast and the East Coast. So there's one in Halifax and one in I do believe it was Vancouver, and it's called Switchback. It had Stan the Man and Rufus the Dog. And it was basically a variety show for kids. It was like one of the first ever, really. It was just like had a couple of, Stan the Man and Rufus the Dog. And they would just like play old Batman shows. And they would have they would read viewer mail and stuff like that. It was a really cool show.
See, it wasn't ringing a bell, but when you mentioned Rufus the Dog and viewer mail, it vaguely does.
Yeah, they read viewer mail all the time.
And was there like 321 Contact? Was that a
if
show?
they read your mail online, you could get a free record. Or a CD.
That's why you know it.
And I do have. I found the record
back then. Is that why we have like thousands of records in our house?
No. This was like I saw it and it just jogged my memory, so I had to have it. It was only $1. But it's just a funny show. A lot of people here in St. John will remember it, and then those out west had their own division of it, so they would remember it as well. But I remember Switchback.
So did it only air locally then?
Yeah, locally only in the East Coast and the West Coast. Wasn't all through Canada, as far as I knew, anyways. It was really interesting. It was a really interesting show.
So I remember there was a whole like TGIF lineup. I think it was like Full House,
Yeah.
and then I remember shows like The Cosby Show, Facts of Life,
Facts of Life,
Different Strokes,
Family Ties,
Jeffersons.
yeah,
Yeah.
the Jeffersons. Yeah,
And
This was great shows. Weird ideas, concepts
premises.
yeah.
But you know, it's back then we would all watch the show. So for instance, if there was an episode of The Cosby Show, we would all watch it and we'd talk about it at school the next day.
I know. I remember doing that as well.
Because everybody was watching the same shows. There weren't that many to choose from. And you weren't recording them. You were watching them in real time. Nowadays, it's not quite the same. There are some shows that people are watching and talking about, maybe Game of Thrones or things like that. But for the most part, we're all sort of watching our own shows and our own, whether we're streaming them or on Netflix or on television, and then we're watching them at different times. Maybe we're binging a season. So you don't have that same dialogue around shows that you used to have.
Absolutely. The only ways that you could have the dialogue with the old shows back in the 80s was to talk face to face or on the phone. That's it. There's no internet. There's no other ways in which to do that. So it's interesting because there's multiplicity of different ways to do it now. You know,
I wanted to talk about a few little random things that I remembered that I just find kind of strange.
Do it. Go.
Do you remember ever going to a birthday party where they had money cakes?
No, I don't remember money cakes.
Okay. They would, the mother of the birthday boy or girl would actually bake coins into a cake. So they'd wrap up quarters or dimes or nickels in saran wrap.
Oh, I do remember that.
And then they
my mother
put
actually
them
did that
in
one
the
time.
cake.
Yeah, my mother actually did that one time. I think she did it though post bake. You know,
Okay.
like you just stuff it in there.
Probably. But even still, like, why did it's like a choke? It's more like, how many choking hazards would you like stick into the cake? Maybe people weren't really eating the cake. I remember getting a piece of money cake and thinking, this is like awesome. It was like buried treasure, right? Like kids love that stuff.
It's just so strange though. It really is. It like that would, you imagine doing that at school. Hey,
Yeah, they would
it's
think
my
you're
birthday.
a psychotic trying to
Here's your cake full of money, coins. Just
break a tooth.
try not to choke.
So then looking at some other random games, lawn darts was
Oh, I remember lawn darts.
like a complete death trap.
Yeah, I did. Actually, I really enjoyed that game. Like I really did. If you were in a safe atmosphere and you were playing that game, it's fun. It is fun.
Yeah, but I mean, even if the adults have their wits about them, and let's face it, probably a lot of times there's alcohol
Rarely.
involved.
Yeah.
You still have your family dog running around? They just get impaled by a lawn dart.
Impaled dog.
That's horrible. I just can't believe that somebody thought that was a good game, that they couldn't see the disaster, the impending doom of.
I know they probably have this kind of thing now, but when I was a kid, they had really realistic looking like guns and stuff that kids could buy, like really realistic looking like guns of war.
I think they probably still do.
They probably still do, but I think it's a little bit more shunned upon for buying it for your child.
Yeah.
But maybe not. I don't know, but I just remember that. I used to have a BB gun, like all kinds of stuff. It's crazy.
Do you remember bobbing for apples?
Oh yeah.
I know that still happens, but my God, that's just like a germ factory.
Well, and it's just it's just how is that fun?
It's like waterboarding yourself.
Yeah, it's like waterboarding yourself. Exactly.
I do remember bobbing for apples, though. I think it was like
I think I did it
Halloween
once, and I was
party.
like, I'm never doing that again.
Oh, and tinsel.
Tinsel. Oh my God. Yeah, the tinsel that was on our tree. Like, it just looked like a silver cone.
Our family dog used to eat it, and then
You'd find.
oh yeah.
What happened to your dog when he ate it? Wait, finish the story.
There was a time when scissors had to be taken because there was poop chasing him around the yard. It was, and then in the springtime, the poop that was wasn't found and picked up on the lawn when the snow melted, you just see little mounds of tinsel.
Little-
It would help you locate the poop.
That's a tinsel.
I don't know how that dog
It
survived.
would be
but
like a, I don't know, like a flag, you know?
that was
Just
my
like,
dog, Dusty.
Dusty.
Yeah, he lived a good life despite all his tinsel ways.
Dusty who wiped his bum on the carpet.
Oh, God.
Had to say it.
That
Well,
did happen. I think that was
yeah.
also another tinsel story.
Oh, God.
That carpet's long gone.
Oh, well, of course it is. Actually, isn't it the carpet we have in our home right now?
Yes. What else you got? Cabbage Patch Kid dolls were a huge thing.
G.I. Joes for me. That was what was a huge. The swivel arm G.I. Joes, Cobra and Duke, all those.
Which are now like major collectibles,
Worth
right?
a lot of money. I had a huge collection.
Bet you wish
too.
you had taken better care of them.
Well, maybe, yeah.
And remember G.I. Joe?
The greatest American hero.
Oh, what am I trying to think of though?
Joe's there.
Oh, I said this earlier, the more
Oh.
you know. Do you remember those?
Oh, no, it's...
like when you were learning, it was like a after school.
And knowing is half the battle.
Yes, that's it. That's it. That's what I was going for. I knew it would come eventually.
And now you know. And knowing is half the battle.
I think that was separate. So I think there was the G.I. Joe ones, and then I feel like there was the
That was
more
G.I.
you
Joe.
know with the rainbow and the star.
That was G.I. Joe. Yeah.
Oh,
that
was it?
that was their thing. Well, I mean, NBC had that thing too, I think.
That's
where
how
they-
I learned not to jump off a dock head first
Oh, do you
into
remember...
shallow water.
do you
Because there was one on that, and I never forgot it.
Do you remember
It's
after
horrible.
school specials? Those were interesting.
Well,
Do you
yeah.
remember ever watching those? Like,
Well, I thought that. Oh, okay. Maybe that's. Maybe.
well, no, they were like
Too.
fictional stories about like teenagers going through stuff or whatever. And it was just
Oh.
like, if you hear that in the background, that is our nutty cat chasing around a piece of aluminum foil that's rolled up into a ball that he probably forgot that he even owned for months and months and months, and then just dug it up, and now he's just picking.
He
this
owns
time.
it.
Yeah, he's owning it. Anyway.
He's yeah.
So you get a little bit of a, kitty cat action in the background, little drum beat.
So Cabbage Patch. This is just a quick interesting fact. U.S. custom agents seized 20,000 counterfeit Cabbage Patch dolls at the border in 1984. They were in such high demand, like people were fighting over them in the stores.
Oh, I remember.
So like these counterfeit dolls were being shipped in with materials. Oh my God,
Yeah.
our cat is going insane.
He is going nuts. Whatever, we're just going to roll with it.
I swear he knows when we're recording
I know.
because he's perfectly
I know.
quiet for hours.
I know.
And then as soon as we hit
Usually-
record, it's chaos.
Usually he's meowing and stuff, but no, he's going crazy here. It's like he found some catnip too or something. I don't know.
Do you remember how bloody cheap stuff was? Like when you can get the little bags of chips and then the little bit bigger bags of chips, but they were still considered like a single serving.
Oh, yeah.
It was like 50 cents or 75 cents.
Oh yeah, I remember when chips were 25 cents. Cans of pop were, I don't know, 25 cents too. I remember going. There's another thing that you couldn't do now. I remember going to the store. I'm sure you did it too, and buying cigarettes for your for your mom
Oh,
or dad.
yeah. I remember
They
that.
just gave. Actually, for the longest time, they didn't even give a note. It was, and then eventually, the person working at the store, I think by law, had to require a note. So then
A
they started
note.
giving us notes. So it's just like, it's so funny being like a. Anyway, yeah, I just remember doing that so much.
Well, and everybody smoked. And,
Yeah.
I think it was most people's parents smoked. My parents have long since
Do you remember
quit, but it was, I remember just like it
The
was.
players. Do you remember the players with the circle on the front and
Yes,
stuff?
and
the-
I remember, it was just everywhere you went. People in restaurants, you'd be in stores. There was just clouds of smoke everywhere, and you didn't even really smell it because it was everywhere. So that's one thing I'm happy to leave back in the 80s and 90s.
I remember going to a local pub here called O'Leary's, and I was a non-smoker my whole life. I never had a cigarette, but I bet you the time I spent in O'Leary's, I've smoked probably about 50 cartons of cigarettes because it was just like a smoke-filled, like, there's no smoke eater that you have now. You open the door or not, and more times not, if it's cold.
I know, they just
Anyway.
hotboxed it.
It's crazy. Ashtrays on every single table.
Well, we hope you enjoyed our little trip down memory lane, and
Yeah.
hopefully get you thinking about some of your happy childhood memories or
Things you
reflecting
remember,
on.
yeah.
And I'm sure lots more have probably come to mind, more than we touched on. But
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us,
Yeah,
everyone.
thanks for listening, everybody, and tune in for the next Info Quench podcast.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening.
Be sure to visit InfoQuench.com to subscribe and catch up on past episodes.
You can also check out InfoQuench on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Till next time.